Hey guys, welcome back. Thank you for joining. We are still continuing with question 5 of the November 2017 question. We are going to look at the questions that relate to helmets in this video. So without wasting any more time, let us just go straight into it. So the first question is calculate the value of closing stock on 30th of September 2017 using the weighted average method. All right, and that's for 9 marks. Okay, cool. And we know that it relates to helmets. So let us look at the stock of the helmets. So we have helmets here. So we had 30 units of helmets at the beginning of July. And then we bought 75 more. And then we're told here that the defective 5 helmets from the purchases in August were returned to the suppliers for a full refund. And then we're also told that we sold a total of 85 helmets during this time, and we sold each helmet for a price of 600. Okay, let's go. So, you know, the formula to calculate the weighted average method is that the first thing you need to do, you have to calculate the weighted average cost. And then once you find the weighted average cost, you can multiply, and then you can use that to multiply by the number of units that are on hand, which is 12 in this case. So let us start by calculating the weighted average cost. So we want the average of the cost. So the first thing that you're going to start with, obviously have stock at the beginning of the year for a cost of 500, and the value of that stock is 15,000. So what you're going to say is, let's open a bracket. You're going to say 15,000. And then we're going to say, we're going to add the purchases for the period. So for the period, we have made purchases of up to 39,300. So we're going to add the 39,300. So we're going to add 39,300. And then after that, we were told that there was 5 units that were defective from the purchases in August 2017 that were returned to suppliers for full refund. So in this case, what we need to do is to exclude these 5 from our calculation. We know that they are from the 20 August 17 units, so they were at 525. So we need to make sure that we exclude them in our calculation. So the way to exclude them would be to say, we'd have to say, we'd have to say minus, so it was 5 units and the cost was 525. So we'd have to subtract these, right? And then once we've calculated these, we'll divide then by the number of units. So the number of units, we know that we had 30 units at the beginning, and then we bought 75, and then we returned 5. So what we would do then would be to say 5 plus 75, and then we'd say minus 5. And then if you can enter this in your calculator, you should get a weighted average price of 516.75. So that would be the weighted average cost. And then once you have the weighted average cost, your closing stock would then, the closing stock would then be equal to, because we have 12 units on hand, so we have 12 units on hand, and then we multiply it by the weighted average cost, which is 516.75, and then you get the value of 6,201, and that is the value of the closing stock for helmets. So that's how you should have calculated this one and be able to get all your marks. Cool, let's move on to the next question. So the next question says, is the weighted average method appropriate to value the helmets? Explain 1 point. So this is a question where you can say yes and support it and get it right. And this is also a question where you can say no and be able to support it and still get the mark. So let us look at a situation if we said yes. So if we said yes, I would have said yes, because these are low cost units. So these are low cost units relative to the other products that are being sold by the company. So for that reason, I would consider using the weighted average method. And the value of helmets, you can see the value here. These cost prices, they do not materially differ. So if you say that your average price is 516, that doesn't look too bad to me. So that price is not too far from these ones here, from any of these ones here. It's actually quite the midpoint of everything. So I would accept that. So for those reasons, I would say yes, because these are low cost goods relative to the other stuff that is being sold in the business. And secondly, my other reason would be the fact that the weighted average cost does not materially differ with the cost price per units. So those would be my reasons for saying yes. And then I would also have reasons for saying no. So the reasons for saying no, firstly, this is not a huge number of units that you have to average them instead of actually picking them by each cost and maybe using the FIFO method. So this is quite a low number of units. So for that reason, I'd say no, do not use the weighted average method. And then the other reason is that the price of these things, it's steadily increasing. So you can see we bought for 510, 525, and 540. And if you're using the weighted average method, you go back to the price that's closest to 510. But you're not considering the fact that these things are steadily increasing. So you don't want your weighted average price or weighted average cost to be too far from your actual cost prices. And because these prices steadily increase, you can find yourself in a situation where that cost price, that weighted average cost price becomes too far. But we just have to say yes or no and give one answer. So I'll just say yes. The reason for yes, these are low cost products relative to what the business sells. Because the other thing they're selling those motorbikes which cost around like 24,300. So you don't want, if you're gonna specifically identify those ones which were worth 24,300, how much work would you have to do to identify the ones that are costing 500 and there's like 75 units that you bought? So for that reason, these are low cost relative to what the business sells, and therefore it's fine that you use the weighted average method. Cool. And then moving on to the next question. The next question asks, Mike suspects that helmets are being stolen from the shop despite security cameras being installed. So they already said that the security cameras are in. So if they ask you for a suggestion on what to do, you can't say come use security cameras because they're already there. So they say provide a calculation to verify his suspicion. And then after that, what should Mike do to improve the internal control of stock? State 3 points. Okay. Firstly, we need to make sure that he's actually right. So what we need to do then in this case would be to say, well, you had 30 units at the beginning, you add the 75 units, you subtract the 5, and then you subtract the 85 units. After you do that, you should actually be left with the number of units that are on hand. And if it is equal to this one here, then there's nothing that's been stolen. So let's do this. So we're going to say 30 units that were there at the beginning, plus the 75 that we purchased, minus the 5 that we returned, and minus the 85 that we sold. That will give you 15. So in other words, we should have 15 units that are on hand. So we should have 15 units on hand, but we have 12. And therefore, what you do then would be to take the 15, say minus 12, and then you'd say it's equal to 3. And therefore, there's 3 missing units. There's 3 missing units from the stock. And then what can Mike do to improve the internal control of stock? And they want 3 points. So the first one would be to regularly conduct a physical stock count of units. So if you are regularly counting the units physically, you're able to see when it was actually stolen. So if you do, for instance, a physical stock count every 3 months, it means that when you find out 3 months that in 3 months that there's 3 units missing, you actually don't know when were those units stolen. So to investigate on who stole those units would be very difficult because you'd have to watch the security footage for 3 months, and that is a lot of time to be watching that. But if you do it weekly, you're sort of more able then to go into the security footage to actually check who that person that might have taken those units is. And then the other one that I think of is improve access controls to the inventory room. So you want to make sure that you control who can access the inventory room. Some workers don't need to access the inventory room. So if you have 2 people that are able to get into the inventory room, then when there's units missing, you're able to question those 2 people, as opposed to when there's 15 people that can be able to access that inventory room. To question 15 people is much more difficult than questioning 2 or 3 people that have access in that inventory room. And then lastly, provide safety cabinets for the stock. So if you have the stock in cabinets, someone has to open that cabinet in order to be able to access that stock. It will make the likeliness of stock being stolen very much unlikely, as opposed to having everything open. And that was the last question that we had to answer. And thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you in the next lesson. Cheers.